Hello there, and welcome back to International Fathers. I'm your host and your creator, Nelson L. Moody Sr. Today we're back with another father who would like to talk about some stories that he had experienced in his lifetime as a father. One, he dealt with his father and his situation, and then years later he dealt with his situation as far as his sons. And right now we're going to jump right into our topic and our questions. What was your childhood like with your father?
Um, well, I grew up in South Carolina. I'm originally from Orangeburg, South Carolina. So growing up in South Carolina, I grew up primarily with my mother. My mother and my father divorced when I was like a baby. So I always been with just my mother. So it's been me, my mother, and my three sisters. So my relationship with my father really didn't exist because I never um, spoke with my father or met my father until I was about 9 or 10 years old when I actually met my father. And we actually sat down and talked and I actually met my father. So it wasn't until way later. And the reason for that is because growing up, my grandmother always said negative things about my father to me.
Interesting.
So by her always saying negative things about my father to me, that made me did not even want to meet my father. Because she always said negative things. He wasn't there for you growing up. He didn't buy Pampers. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. She always said negative things when me and her was alone. And that really made me not even want to meet my father, and I already had anger towards him before I even met my father based on a lot of things that my grandmother said about my father to me personally.
Wow, so you being this young child, Orangeburg, South Carolina, with three sisters, and you say four different fathers, with your grandmother telling you negative things about your father that you don't even know about, but just an attempt to keep you away from him and him from you. How did that feel besides the anger that you had within yourself? What other kind of feelings were harboring inside of you?
Um, like a lot of different feelings. Like abandonment, like hurt, like pain, like betrayal. Because she says so many things. I had a lot of different feelings, but most of it centered around just anger. I was just really angry that he wasn't there, and it's sad because I found out later things was different than what it seemed. Behind the scenes, that my father was not who my grandmother made my father out to
Wow.
be. But she was the one that said so many negative things that for a long time I carried a lot of anger in me. Abandonment, like he really didn't care about me, when later I found out that pretty much everything I thought was actually the opposite.
So this was no doubt a taught behavior. Grandmother teaching you to basically dislike your father for whatever reasons she had, and not necessarily letting you see who your father is for himself
Right.
through all these years. How many years you said it was?
That was like about 9 or 10 years. Um, oh well, that's 9 or 10 years of before I even had met my father that she stated this.
Okay.
But it went on again through my adulthood because I still carried that anger. Even after I met my father, I still carried that same anger for years.
Mm.
So I carried the anger until I actually met my father. After meeting my father, I'm still thinking about what my grandmother have told me. So that carried on for years. And I think that's a big issue in this country of people. It goes both ways,
Okay.
male and female. But people telling you negative things about your father or about your mother, in this case about my father, and that goes on for years
Mm-hmm.
of pain and hurt
Mm.
that you have towards someone based on something that someone said. And a lot of times it's not even true.
No.
It's based on what that person felt against that individual. So then they put it onto the kids. And in my particular case, that would happen. Her anger or whatever she felt in trying to protect her daughter, which was my mother,
Okay.
she then just put her feelings onto me, which caused pain for a lot of years against a man that really did not deserve the pain. Once years later we were able to make amends and sit down and really talk.
Mm. Let's go back to your childhood. You said something that I myself am a victim, fatherlessness also as a child. Being that boy, how did you feel when your friends, and particularly your male friends, had their fathers engaged in their lives, doing things with them, showing them and teaching them how males are supposed to act and respond?
Well, it's real hard. It's real hard. It's hard for kids today. When you go through that, the first thing you're doing is you're doing a lot of lying. Because when kids bring up about your father, you're doing a lot of lying. You and your father close? Yes.
Okay.
What do your father do? Oh, my father is a doctor. What you did this weekend? Oh, I hung out with my father. Where y'all go? Oh man, me and my father did this, and me and my father did that. And then in your personal moment, you're angry and you want to fight, or you want to cry, or you have your head down in your personal moments because none of that is true. But you want to save face in front of your friends, so you tell your friends a lot of things that's really just not true. So for me growing up, probably my most horrible days was my childhood, because of the pain of, like I said, my grandmother telling me negative things, and a few other people too, but primarily my grandmother was the one that pretty much put that anger in me about my father. But that's what happens, and a lot of kids is experiencing it today, where they're doing a lot of lying to their friends, and it hurts when you see their fathers taking them out and they're with their fathers, and they know their situation is different, but to save face, they lie. So you're just really living a lie. Because very few people is going to say, especially as a child, very few people are going to say, let me tell you the truth. I don't know my father, or I got a bad relationship with my father. They're not going to say that. So really, you're like an actor. You're acting. You're living a lie.
A straight lie. I can relate to that because as a child, when you got permission slips sent home, or you got information sent home for emergency contact cards, I used to fake a name for my father because I did not know who my father was. I've heard bits and pieces, but never the truth. And here to this day, I still don't know the truth of a man I've never seen before, but he's now passed on. I also used to write unknown as far as the address. And watching my homeboys back in the day interact with their fathers, playing baseball, playing football, playing basketball, riding bikes, or going to the Civic Center in Baltimore City, which is now the arena for some people out there who don't know what I'm talking about. The interaction that they had, even the girls having their father there to show them, to teach them certain things, like you said, is a big act. It's like you're pretending that you have this person. I call it an illusion. That only you know that this person do not exist, but you go around telling a whole bunch of lies to get some type of satisfaction.
Yeah, and to be honest, once you do that, all you're doing is you just building upon pain, because actually, what's funny is you actually start believing the lie.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You really start believing the lie that your father is close with you, or you lie and say, well, my father is a doctor or my father's a lawyer, to make your father look big compared to other kids' fathers. but all you're doing is you're just putting more pain on top of more pain on top of more pain, and then sooner or later you got to face the truth and say, well, hey, this is not reality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lying. This is a lie. I do not have a close relationship with my father. And that's when some people just lose it or really break down, because you lie so much till you actually start believing the lie.
Based upon one lie. Telling this lie to cover this lie, tell this lie to cover this lie. And just goes on and on and on and on. Fast forwarded from your childhood, now you're an adolescent, then you're a young adult. You had your first child. Tell us about some of the similarities that you had with your first child and your dad.
Well, funny is all it almost like the same situation with my son Mark, my first son. Actually, the situation was similar. My son had lived in South Carolina while I was here in Maryland attending college, but the same situation. His mother was telling him things about me that wasn't true.
Okay.
So, your father don't pay child support. Your father's not a nice person. Your father don't care about you. The reason why your father don't visit you as often is because he just don't care, which wasn't the case. I was in college and I did visit. But this kid ended up hating me again based on what his mother said. And the same situation, like I hated my father based on what my grandmother said. So I find it interesting later that it's actually the same situation. And then, to be honest with you, this how it goes on from generation to generation of so much hate and pain in the family, because the same steps is being repeated over and over and over again until someone just break the cycle. But this happens a lot. So my son ended up hating me for a very long time. From a little child until his 20s, my son had a lot of anger against me until we finally talked. My son had moved to Maryland when he was 15. 15. So he stayed 2 years with me, and then he graduated from high school in Maryland. But those 2 years gave us time to sit and talk and to actually face each other. And that's when I found out a lot about what was said about me. And then I had to spend my time trying to clean it all up. She said I didn't pay child support. Hold on, let me go get some stubs and show you that I paid. So I feel like I was in a courtroom. I had to gather up information to prove to this child this is not true. So I go and get pay stubs. I go, any information, something I can give to prove to him what was said was just not true. And the sad part is, even if you can prove it, it still take a while for that person to get over that hatred they have for you, because you talking about something that's been built on for so long and for so many years. It's not like the person can change it overnight and say, oh, okay, I like you now. Oh, I see that person was lying. What people don't understand is that this hurt continues, and it's like a long process of fixing it and trying to get that person to come around and understand that what was said about me is just not true. I'm not the monster I was made out to be.
Wow. And take it here that my guess is about 6'6", a real big tall dude. He about
6'5",
6'5", and about
298.
298. Now, being that size, that height, I mean, that automatically say you're a big bad monster, and then to have negative things thrown at you from somebody that is definitely just false, is not true at all, can put damage to somebody. But just looking at this guy, and I mean, you would just say, wow, y'all know that I'm only 5'3", so I mean, you do the height requirements and you tell the difference between our heights and all the good stuff like that. With your son living in South Carolina, um, that kept y'all distant for years based upon all the lies.
Hmm.
Fast forward to that, you had a second son.
I had a second son, and it wasn't bad as the first situation, but again, this is what I was talking about a few minutes ago of how this cycle continues.
Mm-hmm.
I had a second son, Christopher. Um, when me and his mother was together, everything was fine.
Right.
When me and his mother parted ways, because we used to live together, when me and his mother parted ways, then again, here it comes. The lies. Um, he don't care about you. He's not doing this. Pretty much the same. And I think this is the number one thing that women use a lot is that the man is not paying child support.
Yeah. Yeah.
They love to utilize that. Your father
Yeah.
don't care about
Yeah.
you. He's not
Yeah.
paying child support.
Yeah.
So I would say to men out there, and it's so sad for me to say, I hate to even say this,
Mhm.
it's almost like you got to make sure you save that information.
Yeah.
Because later you might need those same stubs or paperwork
Oh,
or
yeah.
information
Oh, yeah.
to prove to your
Oh,
child, hey, this is just not true. Now
Oh,
what the
yeah.
parent do with the money is, you know, their business.
Uh-huh.
But it's being taken out of your check.
Right.
And what they do with the money,
Mhm.
that's on them.
Mhm.
But it's being taken out of your check.
Mhm.
So it's not even the thing of me sending the money in. This is being taken out of my check. So I know
Right.
you received it. Now what the parent did with it, that's another thing. But I went through pretty much the same situation of lies and stuff that's being told about me. The only good thing about my situation with Christopher is he lived here in Maryland with me,
Okay.
where that helped out a little bit more with me visiting him, especially once we had to go through the court system.
Okay.
So, but with my son Mark, it really damages a kid when a parent do it and they live in separate states. That's
Okay.
when they say it, and it really hurts when they tell these children bad things about their father
Yeah.
because they know it's a distance.
Yes.
So they take advantage of that distance and they really pile it on. The only good thing about my son Christopher is that he lived here in Maryland. I was able to see him and visit him, and he knew that it wasn't true. What was funny was he's a little child, and we were sitting in the living room one day, and he told me, it was so funny, he's like a little kid. He said, "Dad, I know that stuff my mother be doing to you, and those things she be saying to me, I know they're not true."
As a young child.
As a young child.
Wow.
Yeah, he sat like a little man in the living room and told me that one day. So, but the point is, it's the same situation of how this just continues and continues and continues, and it's just a generation of pain and hurt, and it's serious. People don't take it seriously. It's
No.
very serious when you cause that kind of pain between two people, and then that person again is like in a courtroom like a lawyer putting together evidence to prove that he's innocent.
I've been there on that. It can also blowing the payments, the dust off of my receipts from paying child support from my son's mother. That was way back when, but just to compare with your story here, what was the distance in relationship to you trying to see both these sons equally as much as you possibly can? What barriers were against you?
The main barrier with my son Mark was the distance. That's the main thing, because he lived in South Carolina, I lived in Baltimore. My son Christopher actually lived here. But it's funny that you brought up that point, because it don't make a difference what the distance is, because you take both situations, the same thing was done, and then it's the same hurt and pain. It's the same process regardless of the distance.
Right.
I still was put in a situation where I had to work hard to prove that things that was said against me was just not true.
Okay.
And that's something that's not easy, because sometimes the other parent will use even personal items to make a point to the child. Oh, look, he drives a Jaguar. Look what he went and bought,
Okay.
and he wouldn't get me a car to take you around.
Okay.
Look at the clothes that he wear all of the time. Every time you see him, look at the clothes that he have on compared to the clothes that you have on. You know, they'll use
Personal shots.
yeah, they use personal information or personal items to try to prove a point like this person don't care. Excuse me. So that's a lot of work to try to again prove that you're not who they say you are. So although it was a distance, and I did my best to try to balance it out, because I would visit South Carolina to see my son. My son spent summers up here. My son Mark spent holidays. So I was constantly trying to always make sure that, you know, I was fair with both children in gifts and visitation and everything that I could, although there was a difference with Mark because of the difference in distance.
And there are a lot of fathers out there that do that. Children in different states, and they spend equal time as possible versus what society says don't happen. The distance between your two sons, what was their relationship like? One hearing bad things from a grandmother, and the other hearing bad things from a mother. And you're at the center of this, being their father. What was their relationship like as siblings?
I think as a parent, you got to constantly watch certain little things.
Okay, good point.
You know, you almost got to be like a psychiatrist.
Okay,
because a child is not going to always tell you everything that's going on.
No.
So you have to sit back and watch little things, watch the interaction with the children. And one thing I did notice with my son Mark, when he would be here in summers and interact with my son, he would always look at what he had.
Okay.
You know, look at his clothes, look at his items and stuff. You know, I noticed that. And it made me then do a little bit more research and find out, well, with the money that I send, in addition to child support, are you getting what I send the money for? And once I start doing a little research, I understood why he was looking at my other son a little differently. Because what I was sending money for, he was not getting what I sent the money for.
Okay.
So that's why he's looking at my son differently, because he's got, well, he got these clothes,
no
but
doubt.
I don't have that. So again, it made me work a little harder to say, well, hey, you know what? I'm going to make sure this is equal. So regardless the mother not doing what she's supposed to do with the money that is being sent there, let me again take my own personal money that I have and go make sure he have clothes adequate to what my other son have, that he have toys adequate to what my other son have, that he have pretty much everything so he can feel there's a even playing field. So that was constant with me to make sure that there was a even playing field, that one won't be jealous of the other, that I'm doing a little bit more than the other. I would make sure they have pretty much the same type of coats, the same type of toys, the same type of allowance. I made sure they had the same thing so it wouldn't be no animosity. And thank God, really, my sons got along very well.
That's good.
It was just it was just that extra work to constantly prove myself that what was said about me just wasn't true, dealing with the mothers. But thank God my sons got along real well, and I worked very hard to make sure that my sons spent time together. I always talked to my sons, and like I said, even though there was a distance between me and Mark, I made sure that he spent summers with me, he spent holidays with me, or I just went down there. And when I would go down there, I would bring my other son along with me when we would go and visit him.
Wow. That's commendable, but it's a norm for a lot of fathers, which society don't think. Let's backtrack before I go to the next issue. When you reconnected with your father after hearing all these lies and deceit and stuff, what was it like?
It was it was hard. It was hard. Once I reconnected with my father, um, let me backtrack a little bit more. When people would mention anything about my father, it always brought up tears and pain. Even as an adult, someone could bring up and start asking me about my father, and I would break down in tears because I still had pain for all those years. But once I connected with my father and we sat down and we talked, it was so sad that a lot wasn't true that was said by my grandmother. Then it started making me resenting my grandmother. So I'm connecting with my father. I find out a lot of this is not true. I start forgiving my father. We start becoming closer. But it started making me have resentment now towards my grandmother. So I'm not calling her as much anymore. I'm not visiting her as much. So it made me have a lot of resentment towards her. It wasn't until years later that I realized, and this is a lesson for people out there, is that regardless the person is saying negative things about you to cause pain with the other person, you have to, in order to fix yourself and to move on with your life, you got to do something that's hard. You got to forgive that other person. Okay. And people hear it said, it sounds cliche to forgive, but once you forgive, you feel that old saying like the monkey is off of your back. You feel a lot better about the situation, even though the person said a lot of painful things. But the sad part was I wasn't able to backtrack to my grandmother and forgive her. She died. She passed away before I could do that. And that's why I tell people now, fix it with people. Because I wish I could have went back and say, you know what, regardless of what my grandmother said to me about my father, I wish I could have got over the hump and accepted and moved on with my life and forgive her and understand that all she technically was doing is protecting her daughter.
Her child. Okay.
She was protecting her child. And that meant bashing the person that's in her child's life that she feel causing her pain.
Okay.
But I didn't understand this till way later, and I wish I could have fixed it with my grandmother and would have just forgiven her and just move on. So I tell people now out there that's listening is to make sure you let it go. Get with the person. Do not sit and try to figure out, well, you started it first. This is what caused the problem. Just fix it so that you can truly move on. Because not just moving on with my father, it was moving on with my grandmother that I wish I had just said, hey, let it go. Let it go. But once me and my father connected, then the resentment I had towards him, now I got resentment towards her. So technically, I'm still in pain. I'm just right back in pain. Fixed it with my father, but reversed the pain, and now I'm mad with my grandmother. So that's why I say you got to move on, because if you don't move on, all you're doing is reversing pain. Now you got pain towards, and now you're in pain because of that other person that started the lie or the rumors in the first place.
So your grandmother has passed on now. I'm pretty sure you still have a little bit of pain still in you. And I know that you still would like to forgive her if you can. So now you have to live with that for the rest of your life. When you reconnected back with your father, that was a big release off of you. Now, how was the reconnection back with you and your older son, Mark? Was it the same feeling? Was it? Of course, it was difficult. Now you're the father, he's the son, but you're in the middle of both arenas of chaos. So how was it reconnecting back with Mark? Because Chris already knows you. Mark didn't. Mark looked at Chris like he got everything. He didn't get nothing. So when you reconnected back, What was that like on your end, and how do you think that Mark felt?
It was tough. It was tough also. The only difference was with reconnecting with my son Mark. I had already learned my lesson from the situation with my grandmother.
Interesting.
So I was going to make sure that I did not uh, continue to carry resentment against his mother, because I didn't want to feel what I felt. I didn't want to feel that pain of if his mother had passed away. I still got resentment, and I just didn't make peace
You didn't
with
do
her.
the second time.
So it still was hard, but I didn't carry that anger that I carried towards my grandmother. I had just let it go. I realized that his mother said some things that wasn't true, but I'm going to be the bigger person, and I'm just going to let it go. But it was the same thing. It was hard, a lot of crying, a lot of talking, the same that took place with my father when I reconnected with my father. Just a lot of things that came out that a lot of times too, it's just miscommunication. Because the child, is hard on the child to really tell the father how he really feels, so some things he hold back.
Okay.
By him holding back, it's things that I just don't know.
Okay.
Because the mother told him some things that I'm not aware of,
Right.
so and he's holding
Right.
back. So I just don't know. So it's hard. It is really hard. It's painful, but the reward in the end is to get over it, to make peace. And I tell people this all the time. A lot of people try to make up for lost time. You can't make up for lost time.
No.
But you can start from that point and move ahead in a positive way. Because a lot of people, they're trying to make up, so they're trying to do a lot of things. They're setting all these schedules up of things they're going to do. Don't do all of that. Just from that day on, just move forward. You can't make up for time. But before time runs out, make peace with that other person, even though they told lies on you or said things that caused the problem. You got to free yourself with that person. Because if you don't free yourself with that person, all you're doing is just reversing pain. So now you're fine with your child, now you're fine with your father, but you have reversed pain, and now you're in pain over what that person started in the beginning.
Interesting. And very, very powerful. You, as I said, are in the middle of two chaotic situations. You and your father, you and your sons. What's the relationship like between your father and your two sons?
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. It was so much pain for such a long time, like you said, with both situations. And now for my sons to be involved in my father's life, and my father involved in my son's life. We all visit each other. We all talk on the phone all the time. Sometimes we're all on three-way, on conference calls. It's just a beautiful situation. And that's why I say make peace. You make peace, then you can see the other beautiful side of it once you make peace. And now it's just a great relationship between my kids and my father. And that is something that I can't worry about no more, that if my father pass away, that he would have missed out on connecting with my kids. So now I don't have to worry about that no more, because I used to worry about that. So now everybody gets along, and it's still a healing process. It still takes time.
Forever healing.
It still takes time. But we're moving forward, and it's a real positive situation right now.
What would you say would have been different for you if your father was in your life and you were in the life of Mark to where you were with Chris? How better Chris could have been, or how better you could have been, or just different?
Well, to answer that question, let's talk about between like me and my father. That if my father was involved earlier and all of that didn't take place, I've mentioned this to you before about I didn't get my driver's license until I was like about 30. Um, 30 or maybe a little older than 30. I didn't get my driver's license. And I had mentioned this to you that I carry a lot of resentment towards my father because he always stated that he was going to teach me how to drive. And he never did. So for all those years, from a child to an adult, the reason why I didn't get my license, I still carried anger all of those years. And I missed out on jobs that I could have had because of transportation. I missed out on seeing parts of the city that I never knew exist because I didn't have transportation. I missed out on a lot not having that license because I carried anger towards him based on something that he said he was going to teach me how to do and didn't do it. And also I'm still harboring about my grandmother saying things behind the scenes. I told you he wasn't going to do nothing. I told you he was nobody. I told you he wasn't going to teach you how to drive. And that carried, and that's sad that I could have had my license probably at 16, but you know, I carried that anger to an adult. So maybe a lot of things I'm quite sure could have been different, but I'm also a true believer in divine order. That things happen for a reason.
Yes.
It's a journey, and your journey may be the blessing to someone else out there that's either going through it, or you may be able to stop them from going through it because of your journey. So what happened to me was meant to happen to me. It don't make me happy. It don't make me feel good that it happened, because a lot of things could have been different, but it happened, and I can be a blessing to a lot of other people and stop them from making the same mistakes to cause pain. So sometimes your journey is not for you. Your journey is for someone else. So a lot of times people so busy trying to get to their destination, but sometimes you never get to your destination.
Right.
You will continue to always be on a journey. And the reason why you may be on that journey is not for you. It may be for someone else. Sounds strange, sound weird, but it may be for someone else to help a lot of people. Even with what you're doing with your work with fathers, you couldn't help other people unless you were on a journey of pain and certain problems. We wouldn't be doing this now if it wasn't from your journey. But your journey is going to be a blessing to so many other people and fathers out there because of the work that you do. But you had to be on a journey first. Unfortunately, you had to go through the pain.
Point well taken out there. Wow. At that point, I felt like you was the host, and I was the guest. I tell you, from your experiences as a boy, as a teenager into a young adult, is there anybody who you could credit to who you are now?
I always tell people I'm a product of all women. I always say that. It's sad, but because I didn't have a relationship with my father until later, a lot of the men in my family wasn't involved in my life. I mean, they were involved, but not in a real positive way. So I always connected with women.
Okay.
Women in my neighborhood, older ladies, I would go to their house. I would sit with them on the porch. I would talk to them. My mother in South Carolina was real big in the community. She did a lot. So it's sad to say, but most of my heroes are like women. I'm a product, and I always say that I'm a product of pretty much a lot of different women, from my other grandmother on my father's side to my aunts to teachers that was primarily female, women in the neighborhood, which was primarily female, and then my home life. I grew up with my mother and my 3 sisters, again, all females. So I always tell people I'm a product of all women.
So, with all these women involved in your life coming up as a child, as an adolescent, uh, was any one particular person that just kept you in school, on the right track, off the streets, doing the pot things in life, being in a house before the lights go out? You know how it was back in the day. But is there one person that you can highlight for?
I give a lot of props to single mothers.
Okay.
Single mothers, to you single mothers out there that might be viewing this, God bless you. My mother is just an incredible person to keep 4 kids together in the projects in the South. And we talk about this too. There are projects in the South.
Yes,
so to have a mother in the projects raising 4 kids, 4 different fathers. Mm-hmm. None of us are in jail. All of us are college educated. I attended Morgan State University. 2 of my sisters attend North Carolina A&T, and then my other sister attended Claflin College in South Carolina. So to have a single mother that held it down in the projects, 4 different fathers,
wow.
That yes,
I give your mom's kudos.
That wasn't there. 4 different fathers that wasn't there,
mm-hmm.
and for all of us to be college educated, not in trouble, never been in prison. None of our kids have been in trouble. None of our kids have been in trouble. So that's a true blessing, man, and that's a testament to the queen of the family, my mom, to keep all of that together. So I give a lot of credit to my mother. I give so much credit to her that I have an organization that I named after my mother called Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project, that I named after my mother here in Baltimore. She's so influential in my life that she deserved to have a project named after her for her work, not only with us, but her work in the projects with so many kids that didn't have fathers, that didn't have, even some that didn't have mothers, where the father was there but the mother wasn't there. And for my mother to help so many people.
Interesting. My guest here, as you mentioned about his organization, the Betty Walker Project, the first one that he ever done, he had invited his mother from South Carolina. Now listen to her response to his invitation.
It's funny you brought that up. When I first started the organization called Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project, which is to uplift males, to inspire males, we have different speakers that come out and speak. And when I first told my mother that I started the organization, mm-hmm. and I wanted her to visit our first meeting, and my mother stated at first that she was going to come. So I said, well, of course, I take care of your reservation with your plane. You stay with me. Everything will be great. And then I contact my mother back, make sure that everything was set for her to come up for the first big meeting of, Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project, and she declined. And I was in a state of shock. She said, I'm not going to be able to make it. So I was like, you're sick? You don't feel well? Because the way I'm looking at it is she got to be sick. Because what other reason she's not coming? My mother stated to me that a young lady in the neighborhood just started a job, and that she had no one to watch her child, and because she haven't started the job yet, she don't have the money to pay a daycare or someone with what daycare prices are at the moment. She don't have the money. So she asked my mother, would she keep her child? And my mother said yes, even though my mother knew clearly that I had invited her to come up for the first project in her name, organization in her name. My mother declined, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was upset.
Yes.
I was mad because I'm like, wow, I named this organization after my mother. I want her to be here to meet everyone, to kick it off. And then someone had to remind me that the reason why you named the organization after your mother is because of the heart that your mother had for other people. So they said how beautiful it is to name an organization after your mother. and then she's gonna turn around and help someone. So how can you be mad with her when you name it after her because she helped people, and at the moment she helping somebody? And sometimes you have to be checked yourself. That was one of them moments that where I was checked. That wow, that person made sense. That's the reason why I named it after her, because she always looking out for other people instead of coming here to get notoriety for an organization that named after her. She'd rather stay in South Carolina and help that young lady that did not have daycare.
Interesting story. Is there a way the viewers out there can contact you for more information and probably meet up with you for an event?
Sure. Well, before I even give you all of my information, the first thing that I just have to say is God bless Nelson Moody Sr. I love him. What he's doing for fathers out there is great. He do great work. It's from his heart. It's his personal time. It's not something he do to get notoriety, which with so many people out there, they just want money and they want fame and they want all of this, instead of just doing the work just to help people and not look for something in return. So the first thing I want to say is God bless him. I thank him for what he's doing out there with fathers, and even what he's doing on the internet. Not even what he's doing on the internet, but I see what he actually do in person. It's one thing to see it on the internet. It's another thing to see the person actually in action with people. So the first thing I want to say is thank you so much for this interview. God bless you. God bless you for the work that you do with fathers. And not only with fathers, I'm quite sure that there's some mothers in the reverse situation that some of these fathers are in, and that you are blessing even to them. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for what you're doing. For people out there, you can get in contact with me by email, Anthony Walker 847 at yahoo.com. Also by Facebook, you can go to Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project, and then you can also contact me at 443-938-6466. And I actually answer the phone. It's not no, because you got so many organizations, people answer the phone for them. You got to go through 15 different people or all these secretaries. When you call that line, you get me directly. And again, I thank Nelson for this opportunity. This is a real blessing to, help touch other people out there with your story, or as we say in church, your testimony.
Thank you, thank you. Viewers and listeners, get your pencils ready and piece of paper, because he will give this information to you one more time in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. Can you get the information one more time for somebody who may not have gotten it?
Sure. Again, by email, you can contact me at Anthony Walker 847 at yahoo.com. You can contact me by Facebook at Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project. You can contact me personally at 443-938-6466. And it's Anthony Walker, and again, the organization is Man to Man, the Betty Walker Project, named after my mother, Betty Walker.
And there we have it. Once again, y'all know I'm going to sit out there in YouTube land, around the world, all four corners of the globe. Fathers, 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 call those children. And children, call those fathers. And fathers, 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 hug those children. And children, 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 hug those fathers. Until next time.